Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video.
I'm 65, male, and have been living apart from my family for a long time because of what my daughter in law did to me. It was a long time ago, so I don't remember all the details, but I think it was an anniversary or something of my daughter in law's parents, and they invited us because we happened to be visiting my son at that time. Naturally, my wife and I tried to decline, but they insisted by saying how it's a big celebration and a lot of their mutual friends are also coming. So my wife and I ended up going there. The party was in a private hotel or a club. I don't remember exactly, but I was going around looking for a quiet room to get away from the crowd. I'm an introverted person, and though years of practice has taught me how to socialize, I still need breaks. When I saw a room at the far corner of a hallway, I went in hoping to find it empty, but instead I found my daughter-in-law in a compromised situation. She was cheating on my son and was hiding away in that room with the other man. At first, I excused myself, thinking it was someone else and everything would have been fine if she hadn't walked out of the room behind me to explain herself. When I saw her walking out into the light, I went through 5 different emotional stages in a second. At first, I didn't want to believe that it was her, but when I finally realized what I saw, I was furious. She was cheating on my son, and there's nothing in this world that would explain that away. She started begging me not to tell him, but no way was I going to cover for a cheater. She's the mother of my grandson, so how can I let that kind of person raise my grandkids? I told her she has only one option here. I told her I'd give her 2 days at most to come clean in front of my husband. If she didn't tell him the truth, I told her I'd step in and do it myself. She was crying and angry at the same time. She told me that I'm trying to ruin her life and my son's marriage and I should stay out of it. But I had no intention of listening to whatever she had to say, and I walked away. 2 days later, before I could even approach my son, something unexpected happened. My wife went all gaga and started throwing things at me the moment I walked into the house. My self-preservation instincts must have kicked in because I remember I didn't get hurt at all, but she was shouting, "I'm a cheater and a liar and I deserve to die." I asked her what she was talking about, and she showed me some pictures with a woman about 20 years younger than me. I had no idea who that lady was or why my wife had those pictures, but it was clear those were fakes. So I didn't do anything other than ask my wife what those are, and she started going violent again. What had happened was that my daughter-in-law had used Photoshop to create fake cheating evidence against me and was trying to prove me as a liar and problematic person. She even told my wife that I'll try to pin the blame on daughter-in-law and would call her a cheater. She did a pretty good job of conditioning and manipulating my wife because no matter what I said, I couldn't convince her I wasn't lying. After a while, I was more hurt than she would believe daughter-in-law over me after being married for 3 decades. She kicked me out of the house then, and I tried to tell my son about daughter-in-law, but even he didn't believe me. I did some digging when I was all alone and stewing in anger and found out that the man I caught my daughter-in-law with was actually a long time free of her and that they had been hanging out quite a lot. They didn't have much of a social media presence except some pics from a long time ago, and maybe that's why my son didn't know about it. I was so mad that none of them believed me that I didn't tell him anything anymore. There was no point of being a broken record, and that's why I decided to try and live my life. That's exactly what I was doing until a few weeks ago when, while scrolling through Facebook, I found my grandson's profile and sent him a request. He's in college now, and he's the only person I miss the most. When he figured out it's me, he immediately got all excited and we got to talking a lot. It was all good, but one day he suggested we should meet up. I knew from our chats that he had no idea why I left the house and he still loves me the same. So we fixed a time and a place and met up. It was a nice catching up with him, and I was merely happy to be able to see him now all grown up that I decided against bringing anything about the past. But my grandson had other plans because he brought up that exact topic. And after he kept asking me a few times, I finally told him the full story of why I'd been living away. At first, I wanted to hide what his mom did, but that woman doesn't deserve any pity from me, and I knew the truth was going to affect a lot of lives. But I still told him everything about the cheating scandal and about how she got me kicked out. My grandson was speechless, and I could tell from his face he was doubting my sanity. He probably thought I was kidding, but that wasn't the worst part of it. The worst part was my grandson's resemblance to the man I caught my daughter-in-law with. No matter how hard I tried to deny it, I couldn't ignore the uncanny resemblance he had, and also couldn't find any familiar features of my family. So a few days after meeting up, I sent my grandson a text telling him he should get a DNA test done to see who his real father is. I didn't think he would have such a strong reaction, but he said that he understands why everyone cut contact with me and asked me not to text or call him again. I was sad and disappointed, but am I really the a-hole here for merely telling what I think is the truth? My grandkid might have been around 11 when I left, but he's a grown man now, so I didn't think he needed me to cushion up the truth. After 3 weeks of no response and me not being able to send any more texts to my grandson, I finally realized that there's no way he's going to unblock me and try to form a bond again. I've been regretting acting on my anger and blowing up an opportunity to have my grandson back in my life, so I finally gave up and started going back to my life before I found him on Facebook. So imagine my surprise after almost 2 months when I received a text from him. It wasn't anything heavy, just a simple, "How are you?" But that was more than enough to make me smile. I was determined to not blow up this second chance to have a family when he dropped the bomb on me. He said he took a DNA test recently, and what I said was stuck in his mind, and a test was the fastest way to relieve the pressure from him. And the DNA wasn't a match. I knew the resemblance of that face, but was still hoping I'd be wrong. I never felt this horrible about being right. But as painful as it was to see my grandson go through this unexpected situation, I was actually glad that daughter-in-law of mine would finally get what she had coming for years. I don't know if I'm just a bad grandfather or a petty man, but I am happy to see her face the reality thrown on her face. It's a feat that my son had lived with that woman for so many years without realizing what's been going on behind his back. I'm glad my grandson isn't one to hide things because after taking a week to collect himself, he finally confronted his mother. He asked me to go with him, and I was more than happy to accompany him. No way was I going to miss the expression of shock on daughter-in-law's face after she ruined my life. When she saw me with him, she was surprised and asked me to leave her house, but my grandson told her, "I'm with him." He then showed her the report of the DNA test and asked her why she didn't tell anyone for all these years. That was a dumb question because, of course, she kept it a secret. No woman that gets to live so comfortably unemployed all day would want to destroy a marriage of such convenience. I was happy to see her struggle, and she had nothing this time to say in her defense. Well, that was that, and we left pretty soon after that. I still don't know if my grandson has told my son or not, but I'll update once I know more. I know it's been too long, but things were very problematic for an old man like me. My grandson told my son about the reality, and they both left my daughter-in-law to rot. She was kicked out of the house. I also got a call from my son to apologize to me, and I told him I wouldn't name him in my will, even if he begs me to. I can't forget how they all were against me and labeled me as a cheater when I hadn't done anything wrong. I wish I could slam this thing on my wife's face, but she's not here with us anymore. My son also asked me if I'd like to live somewhere near him, but I declined the offer. I'm quite settled in my new life and have no desire to change anything now that they realized I was right all along. Another thing that took the longest time was their divorce. There's no going back to how things were, and they ended up divorcing without any drama. I'm quite happy that woman is out of our lives now. NTA, not the a-hole, especially after what she did to you. You were actually soft to not take her to court for defamation because if it was me, I would have sued her the first thing after being kicked out. NTA, I don't know why you didn't press charges, but I can't say that you're the a-hole. You are spineless for not sticking up for yourself, though. I'm not going to lie. I'm a slacker with work after getting way too bought into the girl boss feminism kind of shit and overworking myself for jobs that underpaid me to prove something to who knows who. I decided that my career goals were going to be getting paid as much as possible for as little work as possible. Ironically, this attitude has brought me away further in my career than the grinding and hustle culture ever did. I've strategically picked work that made me an expert in a very niche and very well paying engineering field and put me in really high demand. I go to interviews regularly with the internal energy of, you need to convince me to come work for you, which helps me in negotiations way more than the please, please hire me energy ever brought me. So, as much as I call myself lazy, it took a lot of strategizing to get there. Plenty of privilege, too. I'm not trying to discount that either. So, that background out of the way, I work from the office 1 or 2 days a week and work from home for the remaining days. I share an apartment with my boyfriend who works from home full time. But honestly, I front load all my work on Monday and sometimes Tuesday. Then throughout the rest of the week, I'll send out the rest of my work piece by piece and respond to emails and Slacks. But honestly, my usual week looks like 8 hours Monday, 1 to 8 hours Tuesday, 1 to 2 hours Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Meanwhile, my boyfriend, who works in the same industry, has this schedule. Every weekday, 9 to 10 hours plus evening calls. Weekends, called about emergencies more weekends than not. If he's offline, they'll call his own cell. He gets frustrated with it sometimes, but whenever I've encouraged him to look elsewhere, he says stuff like how he hates interviewing and better the devil, you know. I've mostly stayed out of it, even though I feel like he's doing himself a disservice. But we've been having this ongoing conflict. He'll act super judgmental when I am doing stuff other than work when he's working. Just comments like how I'm being paid to get an ass when I was weightlifting one afternoon, or asking if my boss knew I was doing arts and crafts on the clock when I was making some custom stained glass pieces to sell on Etsy one morning. After a few more times like that, I got so annoyed I snapped at him that I didn't know why he was acting like such a bootlicker. Like, did he really want me slaving away for no damn reason, or was he just jealous? Because if it was the latter, that's a him problem. And if it's the former, I was kind of judging him for sucking company dick. I know it was a harsh thing to say, but I was honestly fed up with him talking crap whenever he saw me not working. Stuff has been so intense since. AITA for slacking at work when we're both working from the same apartment, and for my fight with him. NTA, you're hardly slacking. You've simply figured out how to make the system work for you. Well done. You were demonstrably smarter than your boyfriend, and he is dealing with that by trying to tear you down. Might be time to reassess your approach to relationships as well. NTA, you maximized your work schedule, and he's jealous, mad. I work with doctors who do testing for behavioral disorders, and many of them do long evaluations on Monday and Tuesday, and the rest of the week is just report writing, answering emails, etc. So they have more time to do what they want, but meet their productivity expectations. Also, what type of degree do you have? LOL. I just applied for a new position. When I get an interview, hopefully, I'm going to try this tactic. NTA, he sounds jealous, honestly. I can get how frustrating it has to be working long hours and seeing someone in the same field working 1 to 2 hours a day, especially assuming you're both salaried. But it's not you who's to blame for his working conditions. It's his boss. Really? Feels like he's taking it out on you as an easy target instead of going through the hard work of pushing back at work or job searching. My wife and her family is just the sweetest. Just for context, my wife and I are 25 years old and we have 2 kids. I love hanging out with all of them. It's a little tradition that on Friday nights we do dinner at our house. First, it was just my wife's parents, but then slowly it turned into her side of the family coming over. I love it. She loves it. It's great. Well, recently I decided to invite my mother to one. We don't talk much because she's very, very religious and disapproves of me being married to a woman who happens to be mentally ill. We butt heads, but usually we can put our differences aside. Well, she came and we did put our differences aside for a while. I was talking to my father in law and his brothers just about dad stuff. My wife was next to me and she was repeatedly kissing my cheek. This is something she does often. When I got a chance, I whispered to her, it's kind of hard to talk when she does that, but when everyone leaves, she can kiss me all she wants. And she just kind of wrapped her arms around me and rested her head on my shoulder. Her father and uncles know she operates a little different, and they didn't say anything or even bat an eye. We finished our football, golf, mowing the lawn, dad talk, and I got up and my wife had fallen asleep. This was maybe 7 p.m. I just laid her down on the couch and I got up and said bye to everyone and thanked them for coming. My mom had a huge problem with her being asleep. She knows she operates a little differently. She said it's inappropriate to sleep when guests are home. I said she's home all day with a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. I'd sleep too, haha. And she's just scolding me for allowing that. I said just because I pay the bills, it doesn't mean it's not her home too, and she can sleep whenever she pleases in her own home. My mom is being very difficult, and today I invited my dad over, and he said that my mom told him not to go because we aren't good hosts. They are divorced, but still get along. He even came and had a great time. I'm starting to think my mom is just a dick. NTA, having mental illness can make you physically exhausted. Trying to be kind and attentive mother, a good wife, homekeeper, and handle the mental illness on top of that can be exhausting for anyone. It may not be proper to your mom, and that's her opinion, but that's all it is, an opinion. Doesn't make your wife wrong. Good for you for standing up for your wife. That's the best thing you can do for her in your marriage, having her back like that. The world needs more men like you. NTA, and implying that you have to allow your wife, a grown adult in her own house, to do things is absolutely ridiculous and out of line. Being married to someone means you do things together as partners. Overall, it seems very strange that she thinks you should be giving her permission like a child to sleep, which is a basic human need. Mental health doesn't seem to be the reason she fell asleep. Anyone could do that after a long day. Would your mom have been upset if your wife had excused herself to nap rather than falling asleep around everyone? If so, it might just be the views she is used to, but still, it's just weird to be mad at someone for sleeping, especially if they're still doing the things they need to with their day, and even more so if the person upset is not directly affected by the one who fell asleep. I'm wondering if your mom is just against your wife. Mental health is a serious thing, and it's very good that you can be supportive of your wife. But I don't think this is about your wife's mental state. I think it's just your mother being unsupportive here. She probably took naps when you were a kid, and having raised at least one kid herself, it would make more sense for her to be understanding about the difficulties of parenting. Rather than jumping to criticize all the things your wife does wrong in her eyes. NTA, yeah, your mom is a straight-up a-hole. She walked into your house where she is paying no bills and not taking care of the children, and she is judging your wife. Your mother has no right to walk through the threshold of you and your wife's home and try to paint that your wife should not feel comfortable there. Your mom is just an a-hole, and I think you need to have a conversation with her about minding her tongue or not coming over. Because I'm thinking she has beef with your wife and is trying to create issues, and she should not be welcome.